News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
From the Brown Refrigeration Studios, I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Allan Gilbreth, darkoakmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian with a fun little bit of trivia to start the day. This week in history, we celebrated the first human orbital space flight in history with our boy Yuri Gagarin, who is only 27 years old.
How about that? Oh, okay. You know, I never knew how old he was. 27. Max, that's not that far from your age. Holy smokes.
I have a lot of catching up to do.
Yuri Gagarin, and he made it back, you know. Good for him.
Well,
Right?
the thing is, it wasn't a one-way trip. Right.
Yeah, good for him. Because a couple of those dogs and monkeys, may they float in peace. So, yeah, okay. Anyway, welcome. I don't know where that came from. Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, everybody. You can call or text us today on the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we also invite you to go to Tool Talk. We invite you to go to the very active Tool Talk Radio Facebook page. I was punctual today, Allan. I posted, of course, our must-have item of the week. I posted an item that you used this week to solve a very an interesting item you used, unconventional, to solve a plumbing problem.
I did.
That we're going to actually get to shortly in Allan's Week in Review.
And it wasn't dynamite?
Not today.
That's next week.
Yeah.
But I also posted a link. I just posted I think it's a little link to an article about our great moments in building history, which has really fascinated all of us. And I dare say it's a construction project that most people are actually familiar with. And that is we're going to call this one of the most audacious construction projects of the 20th century. Mm-hmm. And it is the tunnels of the Great Escape. That's what it's known as, right, Allan? The Great Escape.
Yep.
I mean, many of you, I'm sure, have seen the movie with Steve McQueen. And unfortunately, there's a few things in there that... They took a few liberties, but the movie itself was actually
a lot of liberties, but
it was very true to what actually happened. So that's cool. But you talk about if there's a theme of the day today, Allan, and in fact you employed this. The theme of the show today is using the tools at hand. You talk about using the tools at hand, using whatever repurposing you could do. Mm-hmm. The Great Escape, boy, they sure did that. And joining the conversation today, Allan, our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. He's doing a follow-up report because, as you remember, man, a few weeks ago we got hit with those storms, especially the poor folks up in Arkansas and everything. And he's going to do a follow-up of more or less what because because it's out of the news headlines doesn't mean they're going to be dealing with this for months and months. So.
Oh yeah, once the initial shock wears off and it's not that interesting anymore, that's when the real work really gets started.
Absolutely. So we're gonna Jay will be joining us shortly. I hope you'll stay in tune, stay with us for the great moments in building history discussion too. So so it's a really good day for you to interact with us and get in touch. I think some people are already chiming in over at Facebook as you would expect, Allan. So we have quite a bit to get to. I've got about, I don't know, Allan, I'm sitting here looking at my notes. I got quite a bit, and I'm learning not to over tease. However, I do have one thing that I'd like to roundtable a little later in the show if time permits. And one trend we're seeing, Allan, especially I see this a lot with decks, and I see this outside with even in some fencing, is it's nice that people are taking some risks with stock. What do I want to say? They're incorporating metal accents, metal details, metal accoutrements, you could say, to their outside. What used to be, you'd have a deck and you have a wooden handrail and everything's wood, and it's straight lines. Well, a lot of people are breaking the mold. They're doing they're adding metal cables, they're adding metal chains, metal accents, and it's a really cool aesthetic. However, we're going to talk about the kind of cautionary things, too. You have to do it correctly.
Yes, there are a few cautionary tales to tell on that one.
Yeah, so we'll get to all of that. But before we get to any of that, Allan, I wanted to throw something at you guys, and I didn't warn you about this, but it's just something. It's an observation because, and I already know this is going to get Robbie's attention, but Allan, we all are always up on the latest Star Wars movies. Star Wars is an institution, and I hate to say it, we're almost getting too much Star Wars these days. Like, I don't know if that's I don't know if that's possible, but anyway,
it has become a genre all by itself. Yes,
but if you watch Star Wars, okay, well, if you watch Star Wars, we're sitting there looking at the plot, we're looking at the storyline and everything. However, if you step back and just watch Star Wars for the pure aesthetic, the architecture, and the design details, man, there's a lot of cool stuff in Star Wars. I'd like to see it start incorporating into our homes and our offices and businesses like that. I don't know. What do you think? Because I'd like to see some of that.
Well, I think when you get into a lot of these, I would have to say pseudo-realistic shows, they're not, the skyscraper is falling down, so so-and-so has to go save the day. These are more day-to-day type things. Well, the villagers are cooking dinner tonight.
Right.
So we're going to be there. When you get into the more home life of characters, whether they're fictional or non,
right,
it gets interesting because art copies life and life copies art.
Sure.
So a lot of the aesthetics that you see in Star Wars, when you get to the villages and stuff like that, are already pre-existing aesthetics.
Right.
Is this kind of along a different line than, say, I have a Star Wars collectible cookie jar and everything? Because that's something that's Star Wars-y, but it's not like the Star Wars aesthetic.
No, exactly. What I'm talking about, Max, is the fact that, okay, let's suppose you're watching the episode and you're like, okay, I'm not even going to pay attention to the plot. I'm just going to look at the set designs and everything. Well, that imperial office with the where Palpatine is. They really use some interesting light panels in here. Instead of just overhead lights or whatever, they've got lights coming out of the walls. They've got and minimalism, and the only his throne really stands out because it's not surrounded by 8 million other things.
There's a lot of brutalism in open space.
Right. And then you go to the village, like you said, villager. They have very good use of arches and things like and basic structural things, and
or the early episodes of The Mandalorian, there's literally a droid that's fishing with the villagers.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because it's easy to overlook that, but man, there is some really, really, I would say almost revolutionary design aesthetics in there.
Well,
so.
we can pick on other movies with that too. And the other thing I love with the pastoral scenes, pottery.
Oh, you do see a lot of that.
There's an age-old thing about pottery for us anyway. I'm not counting other people on other stars, but pottery has been the key to civilization, because once we figured out how to bake mud and make it permanent, pottery is almost forever.
It kind of is unless you smash it.
Well, but you can break it, but then we'll still do those pieces up 5,000, 7,000, 10,000 years later.
Right.
And it's still pottery.
Yep.
And then there's the kintsugi, which is literally about using broken pottery and making something beautiful out of it.
Exactly.
It is. It's like I really grew to appreciate. I was watching The Mandalorian this week, and I'm like, okay, well, I have my thoughts about season 3. However, man, there is just some cool stuff to consider. And it doesn't mean that your house is going to look like Emperor Palpatine's, office or something. However, there's some pretty cool things that I'd like to see.
Oh, and then we hadn't talked about furniture yet.
Sure.
Oh, goodness. Furniture and tables.
Absolutely. So, all right. So that's feel free to chime in on that during the day, folks. And if that doesn't trigger Agent 732, then of course I'd be amazed. So.
Agent 732 is triggered about Yuri Gagarin already.
Oh, he's already okay. Well, he or she. What does Agent 732 have to say?
After Yuri came back, the Russian government wouldn't let him go back up to space for fear of their new hero dying in a failed launch. So, still wanting to fly, he joined the Air Force and ended up dying in a plane crash.
Oh. I didn't know it. I didn't know that about Yuri, because I you got to admire the guy. So that's well. He had a bold, adventurous spirit. Right?
It's like Ken Miles. from the Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah, some people just have to.
They have to live
on the edge.
The adrenaline.
All right. Well, thanks, Agent 732. But okay, cool. Well, Alan, I just wanted to throw that out there, and I want to keep that in the back of our minds because that's one of the great benefit. That's one of the great things about Star Wars that I don't think gets discussed often enough. So,
well, I think I'm going to tie that in when we get to it. Let's tie that in with several other movies, and we'll talk about what it's like to stock a set
exactly
for something like that.
Yeah, that's good. So we'll keep that. So keep that out there on the table.
Yeah, we're going to play with that.
All right, Alan. Let's shift gears though, because you had sort of an unconventional week.
Yep.
Oh, the humanity!
Gosh, I think your client felt that way, right? This sounds like, but you solved the problem, and as I said, we posted the unique device that Alan used up on our Facebook page.
This is actually the third major time I've used one of those to solve a problem.
Talk to me.
We'll go back to last year, and a client called me, and they have water pouring out from underneath a back parking lot.
Pouring out. Oh,
I mean,
boy.
every crack and seep in this parking lot, it's starting to look a little like a pond. There is water everywhere.
Oh, boy.
And no source for it.
Yeah.
There's not supposed to be any water out there, so here you go. How do you find literally the needle in a haystack?
Sure. Wait, just because I want to paint the picture, how big of a space are we talking? How big of a lot? How big of an area are we talking
This was
about?
at least, the area in question was at least a 40 by 40.
Okay, that's not, yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of place to tear
analyze.
up. Right,
no kidding.
right.
Holy smokes!
So
okay.
here we go, and of course, every time I remember the very first time I saw this stunt, I was so totally amazed. And every time I pull this stunt, people look at me like I've lost my mind. And that
happens a lot in your work.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. So we're sitting there, and nobody can figure out where this is, and everybody's like, "Well, we're gonna have to dig up the whole parking lot." And I go, no, we're not. Welcome to a $10 stethoscope.
Oh, 10. Okay,
$10, $20 cheapie.
Do they make them that cheap? Because that's what we posted. The one I posted, Alan, was
a little nicer.
I borrowed one from an actual medical doctor.
Right, that's a little nicer, but you can get a cheapie stethoscope at your local pharmacy store.
I didn't know that.
For $10-$20.
Okay.
Oh yeah, they got them. They got disposable stethoscopes now.
Did you pull it out of your holster?
Well, now this was in the box because I knew what I was going to be looking for.
Okay.
So here we go with the stethoscope, and if you want to draw a crowd, and have people just totally like an episode of CSI, start walking around a concrete pad with a stethoscope, listening underneath.
Okay,
putting it down there.
I got many questions.
Listening and listening.
Yeah,
and sure enough, about 15 to 18 feet from edge number 1 and 22 feet in from edge number 2, you can actually hear the directly the loudest point under that spot. And you're like, all right, dig a hole right here. Don't dig up my whole parking lot.
Right.
Dig a hole right here.
You're going to at least get close there.
And we were within 1 foot.
Holy smokes.
Of the uncapped drain pipe that had been covered over in a previous repaving job.
Okay, question. Okay, because you know what you reminded me of, Alan? We've all watched these cowboy movies where the the guy lays down and puts his head on his ear to the ground to see where the posse's coming at him.
Right.
Is that what you look like on this? I mean,
yeah, I look more like Inspector Clouseau looking for the Pink Panther.
Okay, but how thick would you estimate? Because you're saying, well, dig through this. I mean, that's a parking lot.
This was a good six inches easy.
That's
it was at least 2 asphalt layers on there.
So asphalt I would guess is a little easier than digging through a concrete parking lot.
Busting up concrete, yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. The second attempt was water pouring out just out of the ground, and it was warm water.
Oh no! So
I mean, it's a huge, giant wet spot in a big garden area, another commercial building, but it was actually warm water.
Wow.
Wait, so
go ahead.
Once again, we're out there with the stethoscope because we don't want to dig up, 20 cubic yards of soil out here. So we're trying to lock down, where do we need to dig? And, after some various wet misadventures, we kind of went, dig up the rose bush. And sure enough, we find the piece of pipe that somebody, when planting something there earlier, had nicked a pipe. And now water is, all up under the ground.
Well, that's what I guess I was wondering because, this is under the parking lot. So this was the water line, the line that feeds the.
All right, the one under the parking lot. This wasn't a drain, obviously. Was actually the drain. The one under the parking lot was the drain leaving the building. The one under the garden was actually a hot water line running between buildings.
Oh, boy. Wait, this was in the same facility?
No, these are different buildings.
Okay, I was going to say. Because, the trick with that would be they turn the water off because it's leaking. Or did they? Maybe you can't turn the water off in a facility. You have to leave it running.
Those big commercial buildings, so,
they're not turning it off.
This garden was going to drown. Plus the amount of hot. And it was hot water. This was on a hot water line.
Oh, jeez. Okay, now, so here's my question, Allan. So the park... There was enough vibration under 6 inches of asphalt to cause that. Okay, because that's a pretty big help. It could have been anywhere, right? You could have tried to trace it, but
we could have been digging everywhere.
Okay, so just as a fun experiment, because I never think about the stethoscope. Maybe we need to I need to maybe have one in my tool belt, but I went around the house yesterday with this stethoscope that I borrowed, Allan. It's very interesting. I put it to the floor.
Right.
And now I live on a fairly busy road, so I would hear the hum of the traffic out there. But then I put it up next to the refrigerator, and you can hear the motor running and things like that. Then I put it up next to a faucet, and I almost went deaf because of how loud it is.
It's loud, yeah.
I have to imagine, and then I'd put it up against the wall, and when you tap against different areas, you get different echoes and stuff, depending on if you hit a stud. So I would have to believe if you had a stethoscope and you were tracing a water leak somewhere, if there's a drip every 15 or 20 seconds, I think you could find it with a stethoscope.
You can narrow it down. The other thing this time of year, another huge use for the stethoscope, and I hate to say it is, the baby critter.
Oh boy, what are you talking about here?
A kitten, a squirrel, a baby raccoon. It's spring.
Yeah.
They love to live with us. So somebody has the baby and it falls down the wall somewhere and you hear something scratching somewhere in the wall.
Has this ever happened with a human baby?
Gosh, I hope not. I don't think they'd fit in there, but
humans fall down other things. We like to fall down like old well shafts and stuff.
Oh, great. Okay.
But something is in your wall, and you hear it mewing or making sounds, or whatever. So instead of tearing out a big chunk of the wall, you can get your stethoscope and pretty much pinpoint exactly where the critter is.
I'm gonna do. I hate to say this because we live on a foundation, but however, under our floor there's how they'll take a 2x4s, they put them on their side, and there's about a 3.5 inch gap, and there's things that are running under my floor. Well, I'm pretty sure somewhere in the back of the house a chipmunk has gotten under there.
Oh yeah,
because every now and again the cat is fixated on this one spot, but now. With the stethoscope, I can find maybe exactly where it's coming in. And
exactly. Well, at least find the area where to go look.
Right.
Because as you and I both know, rodents are really good at hiding those entrance points.
Right. And you know what? Like you said, you don't want to be just digging up everything.
Right.
So, all right, $10. So we just go to the...
Yeah, just go to your local pharmacy store, and $10, $20, you can get a disposable or semi-disposable stethoscope. And if nothing else, absolutely nothing else, the kids will have the most fun in the world
Sure.
running around listening to things.
Yeah, absolutely. So Did you have something to say, Max?
I was just going to say for the kids, don't tap your fingers up against a stethoscope because it hurts your ears.
It's really loud.
Things
don't do
get
that.
very loud. Yeah, and don't be an idiot and yell into the other end when you're.
No.
But
This
it's a kid. You're asking a kid.
Yeah, maybe we don't want to do this, Alan. We don't want to be responsible for
All
eardrums
right, we're going to say
being blown
adult
out.
supervision. How about that?
Oh, I've already been responsible for blowing out people's eardrums with the weekend review thing.
Oh,
No
yes.
kidding. So that's pretty good, Alan. So you went from being from people scoffing at you to being the hero.
Well, you save a lot of money and time. And I just showed this trick to one of my neighbors, and bless his heart, this is a 30 years of stupid. Whoever hid his water line 40 years ago,
Right.
really, seriously, that's all I got to say. We've dug up half that yard looking for this water line.
Oh, great.
Oh, my gosh.
Hey, I forgot to ask you. So when you got down and you discovered the leak, what was the cause of the leak? Did the pipe just kind of collapse?
Just
or
cracked.
It was a
40,
drain.
It was 40. Well, the drain was 40 some odd years old.
Was it terracotta or what was it back in those days?
The actual drain in this one was a PVC drain, but it had backed up. It wasn't getting out to the street anymore and was backing up underneath the parking lot through where the clean out should have been.
Okay, so it's coming from. I guess I'm just confused. So the clean out was buried too.
Yeah, they buried the clean out.
There you go. So somebody back in the day, they just went and
30 years of
asphalted right
stupid.
over.
Yep.
So they were okay. So that makes more sense. So there was the opening for the clean out. They covered it up. There's a lesson there too, folks. Keep your clean out very accessible.
Oh my
don't
gosh,
let
yes.
bushes grow in front of it. Don't pave over it. Don't let asphalt.
You got it, please.
That's important. Okay, so that's really the takeaway from this. And there are unconventional tools at hand that you can use and solve the problem. So, all right. Well, hey, the good news is, I was afraid. With Jay Hill, you never know if duty's going to call and he might have to cancel at the last minute. But nope, he's here. He's going to be jumping on with us next. And we're going to hear about the fallout from those storms a few weeks ago.
All right.
You're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar, Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I've been cooped up in the studio too long. I've forgotten what it's like to be outside working next to men who know what they're doing.
News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis.
That's what those coworkers said when they saw you whip out the stethoscope, right?
No, that's not what they said.
No, they probably said just about the opposite of that.
They went, oh, it's Allan.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Absolutely. So welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from Dark Oak Media and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we invite you to go to Tool Talk Radio's Facebook page, which is getting active again, and check in on the action over there. And also, we want the point out on the table that I introduced is Star Wars design aesthetic. And, see if we want to canvass your thoughts. I think Star Wars, some of the architecture and some of the designs that have come out of Star Wars could be really cool if you start incorporating into your home. And we want to hear from you about that as well. So, and one of the reasons we brought that conversation up early is because I knew that the man sitting next to me here would have absolutely nothing useful to contribute to that discussion. So we got it out of the way early, but we've got our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. Jay, we love you, but as we've said many times, you don't have a geek bone in your body.
You're a member of the uninitiated.
Yeah. Star Wars, he was like, that's the one with Spock, right? So,
yeah.
I'm telling you the
He
truth.
loved it when Doctor Who showed up.
I've not seen any of the Star Wars. None of them.
I
watched some of the Batman with my kids when they were young, when they started doing the remakes, the Michael Keatons and all that.
Right.
And that was kind of fun. But as the kids got older, we stopped that. It's just, different interest. I do some things that I'm sure y'all have no interest in doing.
Probably, yeah. But Jay, one day what's going to happen is you're going to stumble across one and you're going to go, Wow, and he's going to become the biggest fan. Sidebar, my sister, I could not get her to read Harry Potter for anything. I told her, man, these books are great. You have no idea what you're missing. And she's like, no, it just sounds stupid or whatever. Then she read one. Suddenly she became the biggest Harry Potter fan in the world. She's binged, so I'm just warning you, Jay. You don't know what might happen. So. All right, we're not here to talk about that, and don't roll your eyes at me, sir.
There you go.
Hey, Jay, a few weeks.
Wake Jay back up.
Roll your eyes.
Jay, a few weeks ago, man, we had some what do we have? 6 or 7 hours of sustained tornadic activity rolled through through the center of the country, and man, you were nice enough to come in, but immediately after you had to head out and enter into the belly of the beast. And so, what's going on right now, man? So.
I tell you what, the depth and weight of the storms that we have had recently all over the country, and of course the latest one that affected areas within our listening audience right now, just catastrophic. It's just unbelievable the wrath that Mother Nature can unleash from time to time, and the difference between someone being severely affected and not affected, that line is so minuscule, it's mind-blowing. So, when we're watching the weather, we're watching the weather guys say, if you live here, here, and here, and, all they can do is project based on, all those factors where it may go and try to get you ready anywhere around where there's going to be trouble. You want to certainly, to take cover and do what you need to do there as well. But, if it changes just an instant, what we've certainly seen is that the tornadoes, the hail, and the wind, it takes a line, and it takes a line, that might be, a half a mile to a mile in width, and it takes that line, and where that line is, nobody really knows until it, you see somebody on the television saying, I don't know, it sounded like a freight train coming, and I saw a roof blow off, and God, we're just glad we're alive. So, having said all that, when Arkansas got hit extremely bad, Covington had some bad licks up there. So, when we talked a couple of weeks ago, I left here because we do a good bit of work in Arkansas, and took a look over in Wynn. I'd had some calls over there and went and took a look at what was going on over there. And they're still trying to get, roads passable and so on. But I think everybody knows now that the school took a direct hit.
Oh, yeah.
And just thank goodness that wasn't, a school day.
Oh,
and kids in there. That was, gosh.
Well, Jay, one thing you mentioned, though, okay, now, in a situation like that, there's some areas, obviously, the devastation's right there. It's obvious. However, you talked about how you could be on the outskirts of it. And one thing that I don't know that we discuss often enough is hail and wind damage. And, we even if you didn't get the tornadoes, you probably got a lot of wind. But the average person may not really even know what to look for. Like, what if they're trying to, assess what the condition, what things were like after the storm, and they want to try to track down if they have any wind or hail damage. Like,
what
are some telltale signs?
Great question, and I tell you, these last storms produced hail that we've already got claims approved for that obviously aren't just the roof. That's the thing about hail. Unlike wind to some extent, hail will absolutely, the right kind of hail, the bigger stuff, certainly would damage your entire property, every facet of it almost. So a lot of times you don't know if that happens. Sometimes if you got little pellet-sized hail, you hear it hitting a car or some metal outside, and you go, what is that? It's freezing rain or hail, something like that. It gets a little bit bigger, like we literally just had Olive Branch, South Mississippi, South Haven. Had some in Collierville, Germantown area coming out that way. Had a little bit out in Covington as well. You don't know from the ground generally as a homeowner. So what I wanted to talk about this morning that might help listeners a lot, especially if you've got an old roof anyway and you were thinking about, hey, it might be time to replace that, for instance. There may be a way you can go with your insurance company by just simply doing this. We don't get a lot of hail in this area, but what I'm trying to tell everybody this morning is we've had some hail. And depending on where you were, it's hard to say because it wasn't everybody for sure. But we got some in Memphis as well. I would just ask everybody to do this that has a concern. easiest way for you to tell whether or not that you had hail is to look at anything that's attached to your home or detached that's a soft metal. Mailboxes are generally where an adjuster is going to start. He's going to look at your mailbox and see if there's any dings on it, for instance.
That's pretty smart.
Well, so here's the thing. You can't tell the difference, especially from the ground, but even on a roof, an adjuster has a hard time determining the difference between hail damage and what we affectionately know as blistering. And blistering, creates the same type of look, but it's caused for a different reason. Blistering is typically caused because you've got an old shingle, but you don't have proper attic ventilation. So it bakes from the inside and outside. We do talk about that from time to time. But it mimics hail in a bunch of ways. So if you're ever wondering, for instance, well, is that hail or is that blistering? The next thing the adjuster or I'm going to do is I'm going to start looking at those soft metals. Because if it was hail, then you're going to see effects of that too. Here's some places to look. Your gutters. Do you have any little dings in it? Your mailbox. Siding, especially vinyl siding, it's going to put a hole straight through it.
Oh, yeah.
Just had some in Marion, Arkansas, coming out of the south and southwest, had 15 holes in it that looked like somebody shot a gun at it.
Wow.
That's hail. Any soft metal, fascia, roof flashing, anything that's metal, hail will also knock the dickens out of your granules that are on your shingles. So if all of a sudden your gutters are clogged for no reason at all and had been good prior to that storm, they're probably full of granules, and that could be hail. That's another place to look. AC unit, that's a good easy one. Everybody typically knows where that is. It's somewhere in your backyard or the side of your house. That's a soft metal as well. If we had some significant hail, you'll be able to see those indentations on that as well.
Oh, those little fins, it would easily bend those. And
yeah. Well, the big thing is you're looking for a look that, like, if somebody took a ball peen hammer and just started tapping on your AC unit or started tapping on the top of your mailbox or any soft metal. These are just ways you can tell. Because if you've got it in these places I'm talking about it, you got it on your roof.
Well, obviously.
But again, you need that supporting cast if you've got an older roof because, again, blistering mimics hail. Your electrical panel is another place to look for soft metal. And, of course, your fencing is always a way to look as well. How about a broken window? So a homeowner, if you're wondering, hey, listen, I know we had a lot of hail. I read about it. I saw it. My neighbor had some or so. A story like that, perhaps. Look at these areas that we've just talked about, and if you're not sure, give us a call at 901-484-5645, and we will come out and take a look and try to help you figure out what you need to do next.
Yeah, because Jay, if you're new to Tool Talk Radio, you should know Jay Hill. One of the great services you provide is that you used to work as you were in insurance. So these are things that are sort of one of your specialties is helping homeowners work with their insurance claims. So
all right.
Yeah, another thing I want to point out is we just had a big storm, so it came through and all these things were taking place. If you're not sure it's damage, or if you're not 100%, or something did happen and for a fact this happened last night during this storm, big thing is document.
Oh, good point.
Whip out that cell phone, whip out that camera, and start taking some pictures because the storm just quit, and you look at the patio and it's covered in hail.
Right.
Take a picture.
Mm-hmm.
These are all things that will help your adjusters make the proper decisions and help you or guide you to the proper repairs.
Yeah.
Because this is where I'm going to look at Jay and I'm going to say, it's not always the repair you think it is it?
Oh, no. And when you say that, Allan, what immediately comes to my mind is just this. Not knocking anybody, but there's turnover in every industry in terms of, the workforce, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of young adjusters out there that I'm telling you cannot tell you the difference between blistering and hail damage.
Right.
So if you don't have someone, again, going to court without a lawyer.
Right.
If you don't have somebody that understands that, look, it might look like blistering, but look, I've also got soft metal damage on an AC unit, on a mailbox, and so on. If you don't have somebody to do that as a homeowner, you're going to go, okay, well, he said it's blistering and it's an old roof, honey. And you go on and you proceed to pull $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 out of your pocket for a roof because you're needing one anyway.
Yeah.
You need to know somebody that knows as much as they know, and sometimes and in some cases more, and help you navigate that. And as Joe just said, we don't charge anything for what we do. If you've got a way to go, we're going to tell you. Y'all hear me say it all the time. The worst thing you're going to have when I leave your property is you're going to know exactly where you stand on every facet that I'm involved with in terms of your home. You're going to know if you need a roof. You're going to know if you need this. You're going to know if you need siding, windows, whatever it may be. And if I can ever be of service, then I'm there for you.
Well, and that's kind of the big point is it's not always exactly what you see because, all right, an easy one is we had a lot of wind and you got a piece of siding that's pulled loose. That's easy. Anybody can see that. Not a problem. What maybe you don't see is where'd that water go and what is the secondary damage?
Oh, right. Now you got water that's going to be coming in.
And this is honestly why your documentation is important, but somebody else's expertise really kicks in because Joe, as you and I we're just talking about with the stethoscope, you were discovering how interconnected your house really is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How the sound travels and how the things move around the house. And if somebody's walking in a far part of the house, it actually vibrates in another part.
Right.
So anytime you have a big storm like this, water gets pushed places you didn't think water could go.
What about with wind affecting shingles too, Jay? I mean, we've seen them where they blow off a lot of shingles, or they break that seal or something. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, it's all of this that we're talking about, whether it be hail or wind, is under the big umbrella of what we'll call storm damage.
Right.
But at any time a claim is called into an insurance company, the first question that's always going to be asked is, what is the date of your loss? Which is important. I'm going to touch on this for just a moment. That's important because the reason the insurance company is asking that is not just for bookkeeping purposes, because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is you're trying to file a claim based on whether that happened at a specific time.
Right.
So if I'm telling an insurance company, for instance, or if you are, I'm not going to do it, trust me. But if you tell an insurance company that, I don't know when the storm date was, or I don't have a date of a loss, you're not going to have very likelihood of you having success is going to be extremely minimal. The reason they ask for that date is because they have the data that they keep on file and have a whole department that does nothing but to see whether or not that we had the weather in that area at that time that could have caused the damage that you're saying that you had. So today, 0 chance of rain, going to be 75, 76 degrees. You call in a claim today and tell them your date of loss for a wind damage to your home was today's date.
Right.
Not going to happen.
Well, and, Jay, we're all carrying around, there's really no excuse. Alan's talking about documenting everything. You could literally be documenting it while the storm's going on. You could say, well, here's video that is time-stamped of the hail hitting my car and hitting my house and everything. And so, I mean,
exactly.
There's no excuse to not track it. So,
but to answer the follow-up question and what we're talking about, that's the first question they ask. What's the date of your loss? Second is, what is the nature of it? If they're talking to a contractor or if as a homeowner, we just had some high winds come through. Okay, that's wind damage. Wind damage and hail damage generally have a different deductible with your insurance company, okay? Hail damage is usually a higher deductible, okay? Wind damage, because it affects more typically.
Right.
Wind damage is going to be the lesser of in most cases, okay? Again, these are just things that you need to know. But they ask the date for the reasons that we just talked about, and they want to know, was it hail or was it wind? And it's important that you know what those things are, and that when you're trying to navigate your claim, that you get the thing started off on the right foot, because you can't get a hail damage claim approved for a wind loss. It just is not going to happen.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, we're talking to our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling, and really, Jay, you're all about the exterior protection of your home, from roofs to gutters, to siding, to windows. How do people get in touch with you?
We're at 901-484-5645. That's 901-484-5645. And I encourage everybody to take a look at our website, which is just absolutely wonderful. We're proud of it. It's bigmroofingandremodeling.com. You got to spell the and out. But that's Big M is in Memphis, and remodeling.com. Full gallery, all of our credentials, tell you how to navigate the claim. It's all right there. We even have our financing options that are available right there, which we're quite proud of.
Talk about that real quick, because that's sort of a big deal.
We yoked about a year ago now with a company called Enhancify, which is a magnet basically for over 30 of the nation's largest lenders that specialize in home-type loans for any type of project that you may have. It literally takes 60 seconds to qualify, and you'll get at least an offer. But I have customers now telling me that I had 75 offers to do different things for my project. And right there, and it's a soft pull, by the way, to start with. So if everybody knows the difference between a hard pull and a soft pull, initially the soft pull, it's not even showing an inquiry on your credit. If you
soft pull to your credit, so,
soft pull, yeah. So
okay.
I mean, again, that's not shown as an inquiry. If you were to check your credit bureau, if you want to move forward based on the fact that look, we found 10 offers. If you want to proceed, then you'll hit another button that'll take it to the hard pull. But it doesn't cost you anything to find out. And I mean, there's zero. I've seen 0% out there for the first 2 years. I mean,
wow.
And money's getting a little expensive right now, as everybody knows.
Well, and I mean, it's good to have those options because some people, you may have to finance, and it's nice when you've got, I don't know, you might qualify 6 or 7 companies, and then you start looking at the terms and go, okay, those are the ones I want. And I'm a big believer when you have people in companies competing, it always helps us. So if you've got all these lenders, they have to make the terms as attractive as possible, or they're not going to get used. Right?
I agree 100%. So we'll start if you've got storm damage. We'll see if we can get your insurance company to pay for it. Okay, that doesn't work out. Don't fear yet. We still got some other options potentially in financing if you don't have the money necessarily put up for this particular emergency. There's a way to skin the cat, as you would. I hope we don't get any calls.
Which Allan has done. Hey, Jay, I want to ask you something because this is useful to us. You were telling us, so it was 2 or 3 weeks ago when you were in here, and you had to leave immediately, and you were heading off into some zones that really got hit bad by some storms. And even if we don't get as severe weather as we had here, it seems like every time there's a storm, or even just there's those shady characters that are out there taking advantage of the situation. And so we want to kind of give a few tips. And what does it look like on a scene, like when you showed up in Arkansas? What does that actually look like? And
well, obviously when you first get there, you're never quite sure when to go because typically roads aren't cleared. There's power lines down, live power lines still. There are trees down that really make a lot of the roads impassable. Now, one great thing about some communities, unfortunately, it's not all of them. I've run into 2 of them so far in Arkansas that I'm just, if you want to live a place where you think your government's got your best interest in mind from a contractor and a homeowner's perspective, these would be a couple of them. And I'm not going to necessarily mention them. But literally, they have the police and authorities on the perimeters of this. And you're not going to come in there as a contractor without showing license and insurance and all that, which is a great deal. I've heard somebody talking on your show last week about the guy from Kentucky that comes in that misrepresents himself and gets half the money and leaves some equipment in the yard, and only to find out that the equipment belonged to somebody else anyway, and it was stolen, and he's gone. Folks, that stuff is real.
Yeah.
In the last 10 years, at least 5 or 6 times, it's just a guess, but at least 5 or 6 times, I have been in front of a senior, a widow, and a couple that was, in their mid-30s that literally got robbed. Mm-hmm. I mean, somebody, I hate to say this, that went to church with, they knew somebody that knew somebody. It doesn't matter who it is. You've got to vet a contractor just the way you would vet your doctor. I mean, you're not going to look at, a doctor with, 9, 1-star reviews for surgery. I mean, you're not going to him.
Right.
Do that with your contractor as well. Check them out. Make sure they've got their general liability. Make sure that they've got a real contractor's license, you know. And anything over $2,000, you know, you need a contractor's license, okay?
Right.
You know, and there is a place for a handyman in our business, you know, a guy who can do that and kind of navigate it himself on the lower end type of stuff. But you start getting into, you know, anything $5,000 and up, you want insurance, you want licenses, you want credentials, you want references, and those are the things that you just absolutely have to have. Our motto is and always will be, look at us as hard as you want to, because the harder you look, the better we look.
Right.
We've never had less than a 5-star review from the Better Business Bureau. We absolutely pride ourselves in the work that we do, the quality, the price, and the relationship we have with our customers. So,
well, Jay, tell people once again how to get in touch with you.
901-484-5645. That's 901-484-5645. And we'll respond with you, to you within 24 hours, if not sooner. We do have emergency services available if we have one of those storms come back through. Certainly go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. There's our full website with all the credentials, numbers, and things that you might need.
Yeah, and if you want to call Jay at any hour of the day and talk about Star Wars or any of the things he's interested in, if you're just bored, give Jay a call. You're a fun guy to talk to. I mean, you know everybody in town too, so more or less you'll probably know somebody that Jay knows as well. So, all right. Anyway, he's ignoring me.
You're
going
to get that eye roll again.
No,
here,
I'm
Joe.
not. I just was thinking I was going to defer all of my Star Wars calls to you, and you send all the roofing calls my way. How about
Absolutely.
that?
Well,
Good
guys,
for both of us.
Hour 1 of Tool Talk Radio is in the can, but I can't wait. Hour 2 is coming up, and among other things, in our great moments in building history, we're going to talk all about the tunnels of the Great Escape.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome to Hour 2 of Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com, and our pal Max over there behind the glass, and our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling hotline at 901-683-0989. And we also invite you to go to Tool Talk Radio's Facebook page and check out what's going on over there. We've had some interactions with our listeners, and among other things, one of the conversation points on the table, Allan, we haven't heard from. I'm sort of shocked we haven't heard from Robbie, who I happen to know is a geek. He hasn't weighed in.
You actually did hear from Robbie. I just didn't say it.
Well, that's not right, Matt. Did he weigh in on the Star Wars conversation?
He did to an extent.
What is
I'll just put it that way.
All right, what did he say?
He said, Tales from the Loop stands out for me. Seems like a realistic representation of the future in home design. It's a show back from like 2020.
Tales from the Loop. Okay, I got to admit, I haven't seen that one, Allan.
It's about people who live alive above the loop, a machine built to unlock and explore the mysteries of the universe.
Okay.
Something like that.
All right, we'll have to check that out. But we were saying bringing the Star Wars aesthetic into your home. And I know that, Jay, you're getting ready to construct a recreation of Emperor Palpatine's throne room in your den, right? Isn't that true?
What?
I think Joe would like having deflector shields in the house and everything for deterrence for like the cat.
Yeah. So.
Well, little tidbits like this, though, crack me up, though.
Okay.
Game of Thrones.
Right.
So here you have the poor production assistant, and they said, we got a big dinner scene coming.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, you can't just have your Oneida flatware that you went down to, Walmart and got, right?
Oh, yeah.
So here this poor production assistant is running around everywhere, and she calls a friend that works in catering, and like, oh, no, honey, just go down over here to XYZ store. They got a wood brand.
Now you're talking.
With looks like little bamboo handles and stuff on them. So if you're watching like Game of Thrones, all of the silverware you see people eating with, you can go down to there's a big box store that sells them.
There you go.
And, so it's funny how different things, happen. As a matter of fact, I'm working on a show that's going to be set in the pirate theme. and now we're looking for serving dishes.
Okay.
So we're off at the, different markets looking at stoneware bowls, and because we're trying to get that time period aesthetic.
Okay. Yeah. So Max,
it's a
you
lot
see
there.
there, you see what happens there. He works in a shameless plug. He works in he extends the conversation. Okay, never mind.
Where's the food reference?
Well, I would say if you've ever wondered what a monkey looking at a math problem looks like, look at me right now as Allan just said what he said. I'm like, what?
Here's something. Because in a minute we're going to get to our great moments in building history. But we always encourage our listeners to interact. I do want to say, Max, you got a call last week during the show. We weren't able to get to him, but he mentioned he's a contractor. Whoever you were, dear caller, we appreciate you chiming in because he had a really good point. We were talking about something that we were more or less discussing with you earlier, Jay, and he said that he never takes more than a third down payment, and I think generally, I can tell you this: I try to take the smallest down payment I can as a contractor. But you said something about actually legally, there's only a certain amount you can take, right?
That's the law. Yeah, when you take your test, Tennessee requires for contractors that you take a Tennessee business law test,
Right.
And that is one of the questions that's going to be on everyone's test when they go. Legally, you cannot ask more than 1/3 down up front for any type of project. We typically don't ask for anything unless it's an insurance job and the customer's already got the check, and we're ultimately going to end up floating that for a good 30 or 60 or 90 days anyway. But typically, but that's anybody that's asking you for more than that, that's asking you for cash. Those are just red flags, guys. Run as fast as you can.
Yeah, I can tell you with my work, Jay. Now, of course, I don't get called on emergency work. My work is strictly decks, pad. It's always things that people more or less have budgeted for. But my thing is, I'll take some money down for material so I can go buy all the lumber, and then I just get paid once a week for what I've actually finished. And then it creates a good, fair. Then I'm making a regular draw, but then also they feel comfortable because they're only paying for what they've actually got.
Yeah, I'll be the first one to tell you we become more of a bank than we want to be, and what you're doing, Joe, is absolutely not only ethical and moral. It makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, you're doing 4 or 5 projects. You look up one day, you've got, in our case, sometimes $250,000 to $500,000 of receivables.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so all that's cash flow, and that's tough.
Yeah, you got to manage it. So good point. Whoever you were, caller, we appreciate you chiming in there. So, hey, in a minute, guys, we're going to get to our great moments in building history. But before we get to that, let's talk about our good buddy Larry Brown from Brown Refrigeration, because you talk about ethical. Rock solid, just a company that you definitely want to be doing business with. Brown Refrigeration. The HVAC system is about one of the most important things. We're dealing with roofing and HVAC systems around here. The HVAC system has got to be about the most important thing in your home, right, Allan?
And it's about to be even more important because it's already getting warm.
Yeah.
So it is definitely time to get that thing tuned up.
We ask a lot of our HVAC system, and so part of it, one thing I don't know that we discuss often enough is one service that Brown Refrigeration will provide is they give, the tune-ups are sort of essential. I would say get them out there once or twice a year. It's very affordable, but the good thing about that, too, is they can look around your home. They can say, you know what, the position of your couch right here, because it's close to the return vent, is interfering with your airflow. This thing here is causing pollen, and they can help you make the system run as efficiently as possible, just based on the way it's a holistic approach. They can look at your home and say, let's do this, let's tweak these things, and get it as efficiently as possible. So.
And the biggest thing is the landscaping around the outside unit.
Oh, yeah.
Because that thing has got to breathe.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot that goes in. An HVAC system still, like I said, is way more complicated than... It looks probably very simple to people, but holy smokes, it is not. Man.
Somebody stayed up late one night thinking all that stuff.
Yeah, and when you look
impressive.
at and especially doing that out here, when we talk to Larry and you find out that your HVAC system during the summer is pumping is drawing 50 gallons of water
Yes.
out of your home and pumping it. That blows my mind, because the notion that there's 50 gallons of water floating around in your home. Well, if that's not managed correctly, think of what's going on in there, man. Not good. So, but the other thing is their Remy Halo system, which it's like sort of turbocharging your whole unit. It is using the UV power of the sun to clean. It cleans the air, but it also, the air that comes out is actually cleaning every surface it lands on. Top-notch quality, and they have great financing as well, because there are times where maybe you weren't expecting a replacement. Well, they've got financing to set you up with that. Really, really good terms. And like we say, once you find a company like Brown Refrigeration, you're going to want to have regular tune-ups, and you're going to be working with them at least once a year. So get in touch with them. You can call them directly at 901-362-1881, or go to their very easy-to-remember website, brownref.com. All right, Max, hit it.
And now, great moments in building history.
Now, Allan, I didn't have to pitch this very hard to sell you on this one. So.
No, you were kind of like, "Hey, how about this?" And I'm like, "Sold."
Low-hanging fruit.
Man,
so
this is awesome.
So, so today, and actually, we missed the anniversary. We probably should have done this a few weeks ago, because I want to say, let's see, March.
Should have done it back in March.
March 24th is so March 24th, 1944 is the date that this happened. But we're talking, of course, today in our Great Moments in Building History about a very audacious construction project. And you talk about having to use the tools at hand. It was the escape tunnels used in what's affectionately known as the Great Escape.
Right.
That is the Oh, here we go. Oh, the old theme music from that. Very good, Max. You know, I've heard, Allan, that if you live in Great Britain, that when the soccer teams come out onto the field, or just at sporting events, they play this music. This is like almost their national anthem. So, yeah.
I like it. I'm good.
It's better than Go Cubs Go.
Hey, so if you haven't, I would think a lot of people probably have seen the movie. It's a very classic movie with Steve McQueen and all sorts of other actors. However, we have to say right out of the gate, okay, the movie is very true to what actually happened. However, there were a few characters that were added because this was made in Hollywood. Steve McQueen's character didn't really, there was some Americans involved, but before the escape, they got shipped off to other camps. So mostly this was a British operation,
right,
with some Australians, some Greek prisoners.
Hey, Joe, if it makes you feel any better, the reason it might not have been as successful, you could say, is because there was a lack of Americans.
Hey. Well, on many levels, it was hugely successful. But folks, so basically, there was a prison camp, and this camp was specifically designed. It was Stalag. What was this?
Stalag Luft number 3.
Dry.
And this one was designed
like your humor.
This one was designed to hold all the troublesome prisoners, because the thing is, if you're captured in the war, your duty is to disrupt and to try to escape and to make it as difficult on the your enemy as possible. And so the one thing I want to mention, though, Allan, is the dynamic here. We're always talking about a business culture or an environment.
Right.
The commandant of this prisoner camp.
Yeah,
He was not, there were many people we saw, like in the movie The Sound of Music, there were many people that were not Nazi sympathizers. They were totally against, what Hitler was doing, but they were sort of up against it. And this commandant was not a supporter of that. And so it created an interesting environment. He actually treated the prisoners very fairly in terms of like the Geneva Convention.
As good
and
as
everything.
he could, right.
So, and basically, if you tried to escape and you were caught, your punishment was 10 days in solitary confinement. Big deal. So you're totally motivated to escape. So the idea of shared motivation, we always talk about as a great key to a successful construction project. So let's take it away, Allan. So this was cool. This is a cool operation.
Well, the first thing we gotta mention is that there were roughly 600 people involved in keeping this a secret.
Oh, yeah. We should mention this is 1,800 prisoners in this camp.
Right. There's a big camp, and they decide they're going to dig 3 tunnels.
Right.
That way, if one gets found, you keep working on the others.
Mm-hmm. Right. Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Dick, and Harry. And All right. Well, one, if you've ever just dug a big enough hole in your yard, you understand what you're up against here. One of the projects I've been working on lately has been clearing a property of a lot of privet, and I had to go buy a special shovel that would cut through roots.
Yeah.
Not a cheap shovel. Now, I got to admit, this has now rapidly become my favorite shovel. But these guys are digging a tunnel with spoons.
Well,
I mean, this isn't, they don't have mining equipment.
The other thing is they have to make sure they're not leaving any evidence of what they're doing. And so we should mention this Stalag 3, what it was supposed to be is the ultimate escape-proof prison. So they built the barracks 2 feet off the ground.
We've heard this sort of story before. Oh, this ship is unsinkable.
Right.
So they took all the troublesome prisoners who, if you think about it, these are all prisoners who are sort of experts at escape.
Yeah, right.
But so they built it 2 feet off the ground, and then they built it on sand. And if any of you have ever been to the beach and you try to construct something out of sand, you know how
there's literally a parable about that.
Yeah, exactly. And so they had a lot of challenges.
Yes.
And so first of all, you got to find a way to get through the 2 feet of whatever. Well, one of the things they did is there are pylons. You can't just have this thing floating 2 feet off the ground. Something's holding it up. So inside the pylons that were holding them, in one of them there was a drain. They basically rerouted the plumbing, or they rerouted it so the drain would still function. Another, there was a stove, because the stove is heavy, so it had to sit on top of the support pylon. So they dug that. But Allan, we're talking about something where you can't just dig a tunnel and hope that it doesn't cave in. You have to support it with lumber.
Right.
And the lumber part of it is what fascinated me, because where the heck do you get lumber in a prisoner of war camp? And we should mention, the final tunnel that they used, Harry, it's over 300 feet long. And it goes down 30 feet because they had to avoid
either 100 or 110 yards. This thing is huge. It's the length of a football field.
It's about 2 feet wide. Talk about claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Do you have claustrophobia, Jay? I don't know. I don't think I could have done this, man.
No, absolutely. Well, I mean, I would have sure tried to escape out of it, but yeah it'd have been hard working down there.
You're
not only that, but in terms of what is also eating up the length and the width of it is a little rail car that they have down there too, to move people and supplies. So that's further claustrophobia.
Yeah, well, that's the real amazement to this. All right. Well, first of all, when you have this many people, one, you have got a huge logistics of things moving back and forth.
right.
And I'm going to point out, in large commercial endeavors, the number of pallets
Oh, yeah.
that are moving in and out of a facility is staggering.
Sure.
I know everybody has seen the pallet trucks running down the interstate, and it'll be some poor guy's pickup truck or a trailer, and he's got 50 pallets on that thing. That may only be 2 or 3 days worth of pallets.
Right. Yeah.
So there is a huge logistics to that. Now, a pallet is not great wood. It is not fine lumber like you went down to the big box store. It's rough.
No, it's only the reason that it's constructed that it stays together.
Yeah, you're happy it made it to the destination. So there's one big source of the lumber and everything need to shore this up. Two, this is in an area of Poland where the soil is loose.
Yeah.
They actually chose this on purpose, going, let them try to dig through this.
Right. Well, like I said, they put a big mound of sand, and then they knew the kind of soil they were digging into, and also they put microphones and things that they could detect up to 9 feet into the ground.
Well,
so
there's your stethoscopes again, because you're actually listening in the ground for the sound of digging.
So it's really fascinating, all the stuff they did. Like for example, they started a choir.
Yes.
Because there was at some point where they had to break out some concrete, and so basically they timed the musical beats where they would swing the hammer during
literally a cannon sound.
Yeah, exactly.
It's such cool ingenuity, and I mean, these were determined people. They were because they could have just hung out in the camp. Honestly, they were treated pretty well in the camp.
I mean, people literally got college degrees from the camp,
right?
Because they had that much free time, and also the supply of intelligent people,
right? But they did their duty. And what I like though is Mr. X. I wanted to mention him. What was his name? Roger Bushnell. He basically spearheaded this whole thing, and he had interactions with the Nazis that he had a special hatred for what they were doing, and he was highly motivated. And in these normal escapes, they would try to maybe move 3 or 4 prisoners out. He's like, no, we're emptying 300 or 400 of us out of here, and but Allan, there were also airflow issues. You have to breathe down there.
Well, all right.
They pumped, and all of these tools, they took old cans. They took, just all this stuff that,
Well, here is where having a lot of people with a lot of different backgrounds came in and provided amazing solutions.
Right.
Because among the prisoners were people that had worked in mines. Mm-hmm. There are other people that had been in construction. There were other people from other disciplines. And everybody brought a little something to the table on how do we get air 50 yards underground, because they had to go down because of the listening. They dug down 30 feet.
Man,
that is I don't know, guys.
Just go outside.
30 feet is a long, long way.
Right.
I was helping trench a yard yesterday, and we were only going down 18 inches.
Yep.
And like I said, we had trenching shovels and root cutters, and I got news for you. My legs are a little sore today.
Right.
These guys were 30 feet down in a 2-foot square tunnel lined with cheesy pallet wood. And they built, and I'm going to look at Max and go, they built a rail system out of whatever metal they could steal.
They routed light. They had lights.
And lighting, and had a pulley system so they could shove you down there and shove you back as fast as they could.
And then I wanted to point this out. One of the prisoners was also well known for their concrete making abilities, and they were able to successfully make the trap door under the stove in order to sneak people in and out while they're working.
And they kept the stove running, which was a deterrent. They're thinking, okay,
nobody's checking a hot stove.
Right. Who's going to, yeah. So, man, just really great ingenuity. And it's just such a cool thing. And like we said, the movie was actually very true to what happened. The only thing they took liberties on is there were Americans involved, but the Americans got transferred to another camp soon. So I hate to say it, I don't think any of the Americans were involved in they took part in the actual escape. So, but we should say 76 men got out. The only downfall was they dug the tunnel and it fell short about 10 feet of the tree line. So and the other thing they don't show in the movie is that this was it was the coldest March on record, and they came out into snow. In the movie, you don't see that. But that's its own challenge. I mean, think of all the footprints and everything else.
Yeah, this was it's a shocking and amazing story the whole way through. The movie's a lot of fun, but the real story is even more interesting. And now there is a memorial to it,
right?
And they're actually working on more or less restoring the passage.
Yeah, pretty interesting. So, we'll have a few parting thoughts with that, and we've got other stuff, and we're going to want to hear from our good buddy Jay Hill when we come back as well. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar Memphis. We'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
The baler can flatten a car engine. It can cut off your arm and crush your entire body without skipping a beat. How many people a year do you think get their arms cut off in a baler?
Baler? I hardly know her.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
Jay, have you ever crushed a car engine with a baler? I have to believe yes. You're not going to admit it.
If only someone had warned me, I wouldn't have my robo arm today.
Yeah. I don't know. He's got a guilty look on his face.
No, I've been around automobiles all my life, but never that phase of it.
He has too much respect for a car engine. Anyway, welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass.
I'm sure Bud from the Motor Mouth would take offense to the idea of flattening a car engine.
Yeah.
Especially like an LS.
He'd jump in to save it. He'd risk his life to save that car engine. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling hotline at 901-683-0989. Maybe you flattened a car engine before using unconventional means.
It's fine if
Tell
you
us
flatten a
about
North Star V8. We don't care about those.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you something, boys. Back in the day, I was in the Toyota business when we had the sludge in the motors, and Toyota started buying these motors for the people that owned them. Literally, they would send you this fluid to the dealership. We didn't bale them and crush them. Ultimately, I guess they did. But we literally had to pour a solution in the motor that would make it unusable, unrepairable from here on out.
Huh.
That was pre-baling, though.
That would seize the motor.
That was the pre-bale.
Yeah.
Jay's got an interesting backstory. I didn't know that, man. So, hey, Jay, before the break, we were talking about our great moments in building history. We were talking about The Great Escape, which I think a lot of people are familiar with. Even if they didn't see the movie, I think they've heard the legend of this massive
Everybody's
escape.
heard it, yeah.
And in terms of an audacious construction project, constructing 3 tunnels, because it's not just digging, it is ventilation, it's electrical. They ran lights. It's definitely carpentry. I mean, they had to have and using rudimentary tools and not being detected. We didn't even get into the whole way they disposed of the dirt that they put, because they're pulling up dirt that's a different color from the soil that's on the top. So they did some pretty interesting things with that.
Not only that, but the paperworks they had to forge in order to seem like an average civilian and blend in after the escape.
Yeah, I mean they can't just get out and start running around. They have to blend in. But lots of fascinating. We can't really get to everything because it's a pretty big story. But we strongly encourage you to do that. And off the air, Jay, we were talking about like what roles would we have played in that. I for one could not have been one of the tunnelers because I have bad claustrophobia. But Jay, what role do you think you might have played in that operation if you were back in the day?
I would have probably, as we were talking about jokingly, this being Hogan's Hero being a spinoff of this movie, I'm probably more of the Hogan type, where I would have been with Clink over there, if you will, kind of keeping him at a distance while the guys were getting the work done.
Okay, so you would have ran interference or something. So
yeah, I mean, It's like today I'm 62 and I really don't climb on roofs anymore, but we certainly have qualified people that do. So yeah, I'm still going to get in where I fit in, if you will.
The misdirection, kind of like the James Garner guy. James Garner's character was the I forget what they called him, the scrounger or something, because he bribed the guards, he dug up all the materials they needed. He was the one saying, hey, look over there, while the 50 guys are sneaking behind him. So I could see you pulling that off, Jay.
Yeah, that's probably what I could do.
All right.
He's got that James Garner look about him. He could do that.
James Garner. How about James Bond?
Yeah.
But definitely check it out. It is absolutely a great moment in building history. But, hey, guys, it's time to shift gears a little bit. So, Max, let me pull this up here. Now, I've posted this, Allan. I've already posted this on the website, but it's time to get to our must-have item of the week. And this is a there are must-have items, and then there are, this is a must.
I will be using those in just a little bit. Welcome to your pruning shears.
I continue to question how you're able to sneak this past security.
As he comes in with a large weapon today, yes.
I want to see him come back with the Sawzall and the chainsaw. I'm just waiting for him to push the envelope here.
Yeah.
I got those in the truck right now. I can come back in with those, yeah.
Allan, I'm fascinated with pruning shear. This one is about, it's a little under 2 feet. So it's not the hand one. These are the ones you use both hands.
These are
down.
you're up to limbs at this point. I've got one sitting in the truck right now that's got 4 foot long handles and a 3.5 inch blade. And you can do some serious, we're going to say vegetation removal.
I remember as a kid doing that, because back in the day, back in my day, by the time you were 10, you were already earning money and working and stuff. And I remember cutting grass and pulling one of these babies out. And I was just fascinated with the leverage and the cutting ability of these. Don't look like they should work as good as they do. I mean, this thing here could cut through a 3-inch limb.
Easy. And right now, especially this spring, because everybody remembers back last December in the Mid-South, we had a massive polar vortex that hit before any of the plants had cold hardened.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, yesterday afternoon, I was at a friend's house, and she lost probably 10 multi-year, 20, 30-year-old azaleas. And these are big, thick, heavy, and they're dead.
Right.
There's nothing there. So getting up in there with those loppers and getting those things cut off at the ground level makes a huge difference to clearing that land and getting ready to put something else in there.
I wanted to ask you something about this, too, because one thing is you want to keep them sharp, but not everybody has a grinder. I don't even know if I could fit this on a grinder, but do you ever file your, do you ever take like a file or something to maybe sharp? What are some good sharpening tips for these? Because you can't, they have to be somewhat sharp to work.
They have to be somewhat sharp. And, honestly, the thing I find that works the best is just a really, really soft grade file.
Okay.
Just a good old fashioned, just straight file.
Yeah.
And you can just ease it down the edge. And the real thing is you're not keeping it sharp
It doesn't have to be razor sharp.
as you are just keeping the edge from curling.
Right.
Because you're looking at the applied physics of a fulcrum. So that when you've got this thing open, and it looks like a little parrot's beak, and you fit it around the limb.
Yeah.
And you've seen a 2 or 3 inch limb can easily support your weight.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we've, I tell you what has surprised me is really how hard an azalea really is.
When you're trying to pull that out,
when you're trying to cut these things off, man, that is some hard wood.
Yeah.
So you get this wrapped around it, and then when you begin to compress it, what you're doing is you're taking all the distance of the handles and your own weight, and you're applying it into a very tiny little 2-inch area. Which
pretty
produces
impressive
a
leverage.
drastic amount of force.
Yeah, these things are great, and I just want to back up to one thing you said about the file, because this is just my own little bugaboo, but you've probably seen this, Allan. We don't talk about filing a lot, but I mean, I've got a set of files. I'm sure you do too. One thing I remember seeing, people that are uninitiated or don't really understand how a file works, you've probably seen this. They push the file down and then they push it back and forth like a saw.
Yeah. Nope.
No, you don't do that. All you're doing is you're bending those file teeth down. So when you file, for one thing, you should also have a file brush, which cleans out you brush it just like you're, brushing your cat off or something, and have a clean file and only push forward. You push forward, you lift, you back it up, you push forward. So,
the other thing is you don't ever want to pull against the grain on a metal cutting edge.
Right.
You always want to move that down, because what you want is all of the burring and the material to stay on that edge.
Right.
You don't want that edge to curl even microscopically, because that's what dulls your blade.
Right, and that's what'll snag on all the brand, and you'll go, why is this thing sticking?
Why can't I get it to go through?
Right.
Yeah, and honestly, a 1 minute hit. And again, I'm talking about I'm talking about just an easy little straight file, the goofy little thing with the little handle on one end, and you just push it smoothly and lightly.
Right.
That's the other thing.
You don't put a lot of pressure.
Yeah, people think you're really getting in there and you're kicking sparks and you're making. No, a file is a very soft, precision way of moving the metal where you want it, so that when you do apply pressure to your loppers, to your pruning shears, that will push smoothly through without catching.
And while we're discussing it, let me weigh in on one more thing. Sharpening stones are a nice little thing to have at your disposal, but once again, now sharpening stones, there's different types. I've seen where you put a little oil on there. I've seen sharpening stone. Sometimes you have to hose it off to get all the debris out of them and just let them dry in the sun. But those work. There's different hardnesses, right, Allan? I got to be honest. I don't use a sharpening stone very often, but when it's one of those things, when you need it, and they're not that expensive.
Well,
and it works on many other things too. You can use it in the kitchen. I mean,
the whetstone, the old old-fashioned hardware store whetstone where the old guys like me and you'd be standing over there sharpening their pocket knives.
Right.
There are so many other products now that can sharpen a blade quickly and easily. The whetstone is kind of, it's kind of it's over there, but there are other ways of doing it that are just as simple.
Yeah. Okay. But I guess our message is keep the tools sharp and
take care of your tools.
But a pruning shear doesn't have to be razor. Just get rid of the burrs. So
you
that's
just
all.
want that smooth edge so you can get that compression so it will push through the wood nice and smoothly.
Okay. Hey, Allan, in a minute, we are going to discuss some design aesthetics that we're talking about for the outside of your home. But before we get to that, why don't we talk about darkoakmedia.com?
Okay.
All right, Max, keep a running cue here. If food or something else isn't mentioned.
Duh.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
A
What's cooking over there, man?
Literally.
Now you're the one who gave the food reference.
Okay.
Currently going on right now, we've got new episodes of Let Me Ask You This, our little trivia talk show will be coming out this week. We got a fresh episode from Scott J. Carroll of Cooking in a Tiny Kitchen. Mm-hmm. I will tell you, I had no idea there were that many types of Rice Krispie treats.
Okay.
That's all I got to say. It just keeps coming. It's amazing. And of course, our biggest thing right now is we did a couple of segments on Let's Plant Something.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because your backyard is fertile ground for video, right?
We have been working on all kinds of videos. The biggest, most popular one right now is me planting bell peppers. Well, so everybody likes their bell peppers, apparently.
You go on YouTube, and there's no rhyme or reason to do. For me, Allan, I go on there, and I'll look at a video of there's this wood turning channel. They take a tree root, and they turn it into a bowl. The guy's got like 50 million views, so you just don't know what's going to intrigue people. And, so watching somebody plant something is probably actually pretty
better than watching YouTube videos of stupid dogs.
we got a couple of those too, but
it's boring. That's oversaturated.
Well,
okay.
It's a lot of fun in the fact that we do give a lot of quick, easy, fast little tips on. Okay, you went to the big box store, you bought these. Now you'd actually like them to live.
Right.
And here we go. We're going to be doing a big special on putting in a blueberry wall.
A wall?
Doing a full wall of blueberries.
Do they grow like a vine? I really don't even know what blueberries look like.
They're going to be bushed.
They're bushed. Okay.
We're actually going to build a blueberry hedge, if you wish.
Shows what I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Scott and I actually did one where we built a privacy fence out of elderberry.
Okay.
So that's an upcoming episode in the next few weeks.
All right. So check it out, darkoakmedia.com. What if they're on Roku?
Oh, absolutely. They can pop over at Geeky Side TV. They can go to geekysidetv.com and keep up with our adventures on Roku. Of course, we're on YouTube and we're on Spotify.
Okay.
So they can actually just go to tooltalkradio.com and have links to everything.
Okay. Well, Allan, now shifting over to my stuff, what we're going to discuss in a minute actually ties right in. But, if you want to build something, if you live here in the Mid-South, now I'm not going to travel down to Florida or anything, so if you're listening somewhere else.
And Fort Lauderdale's not going to get you right now.
But I love exterior woodworking projects, and I should mention this. I don't mention this often enough, Allan, but I have a very low overhead. I will tell you this. I've been self-employed almost my whole life, and I've learned what works and what I don't need a big fancy office. I don't need a lot of these other bells and whistles that, so I'm able to use craftsmanship and a low overhead to actually give you some really great results on the outside of your home. So, and it's, it's fun. And plus, if you have an interesting project, it gives me something to talk about on the show.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you have a deck or a patio cover or a pergola or, like I said, something outside that's weird, like a catio or like,
Oh, I can't wait to do some more of those.
I'm still waiting for somebody to take me up on a wooden Stonehenge for their backyard. Anything. If you want to build a theater in your backyard, what the heck? Give me a call. You can call me directly at 901-921-7105. And if you want to see some of my woodworking projects, go to my website, thorshomes.com. All right, Allan, speaking of that, we were discussing this earlier in the show. And one of the features that have really cropped up over the last, 10 years or so, I like the fact that, because working on decks and, outside projects is sort of my wheelhouse. And I really, I like that people are kind of going out there and doing more. They're mixing mediums, you could say. One of the things I've really enjoyed seeing over the last few years is especially like in handrails, but even in certain fencing designs, they're not going with the cookie cutter. Okay, here's a 6-foot fence with the slats going up and down.
Right.
They might have a horizontal detail. They might have, they might have a unique accent piece. Or over on a handrail on a deck, they might instead of just having your stereotypical spindles, they might take the stainless steel cable and run it taut.
Right.
And I just think that stuff looks cool. But we wanted to say we're all for that, but there's things to think about with this because it can be done incorrectly.
It can go spectacularly bad.
Right.
I'm going to start with anything under tension.
Well, bingo. That's where I was zeroing into.
Yeah,
because those cables are very popular now. People are doing that.
They are, but they have to be properly mounted. And the other trick is make sure you've got enough resistance. So don't get in a hurry.
Well,
basically, so you're going to put
because if they droop, they're going to look bad.
Right,
and
right.
if they're too tight, then
right. Make sure however you're mounting your post is really done and secure.
Okay, because that's where I was going to say. I was going to say before you get cutesy with this, you better consider. Okay, even if this post is anchored in the ground by cement, well, you start putting some tension on that. That's not as fixed as you might think it is.
Exactly.
If you have a post that's mounted to the deck, you're going to have to reinforce it very heavily. And like you said, so start. That's ground zero right there. You have to start with a really solid anchor. And if you don't have that, you better think twice about these cables. So,
well, I sent you a picture of a fence I was working on a couple of weeks ago, and because of the way they landscaped the ground, it's wet.
Oh,
so it's
one
really
of these where it's constantly wet.
It's really hard to keep things stable.
Right.
So a 4x4 wasn't going to get it. So instead of an 8-foot 4x4 for fence post, I went back in with 2 10-foot long 6x6s.
Now you're talking.
And we put these babies 36 inches in the ground.
Right.
And this is going to be like pulling a tooth.
Yeah, that's a serious anchor there.
This fence is going nowhere at all. So when you're going to put that kind of tension on something, really make sure you've got the mount secure.
Right. And on the flip side, like we said, these are okay. Also, we always talk about consider your lifestyle. If you have some horizontal cables and you've got 4 and 5-year-old kids running around, I don't know if I like this design because they're going to climb on it. They could possibly hurt themselves, but also I don't think it's made really for that. This is not made to be a jungle gym.
It's an aesthetic, not a really hard security feature.
Yeah. So but really, and then of course pick the right material. You don't want wire that's going to rust. But I think they make plenty of outside.
Yeah,
treatment.
you're going to be using an external grade. The other thing I'm going to throw in is don't get wild about the tension. Get it tight enough and stop.
Right. Don't get the
tighter is not better. This does not have to be the bow. You're not making a bow and arrow out of your deck.
Right.
So just nice and straight is all it needs to be.
Yeah.
Because I see people over tighten them, and what will happen is you'll damage the wood underneath the mounts, and then you'll start to decay around where the metal is meeting the wood.
Right. And this sounds sort of fundamental, but okay, let's suppose you got your stainless steel, your nifty stainless steel cable. Well, don't skimp on the washers that are holding that thing in play, and make sure the nuts and everything that are holding, because they need to be weather resistant too.
Yes.
So, just don't get don't cut corners. So
now the other thing I'm going to throw in is a quick tip that people forget about is most of your post when you're putting them in, when you're looking at doing these kind of decorative things, the grain side of the wood breathes and moves, and we've talked about stain it and take care of it.
Right.
But what I'm going to talk about is the cross cut.
Oh, yeah.
The top of that post. don't forget that needs to be sealed or capped.
Yes.
Keep
those
the
are like
water
a
from
straw.
getting in it. Yes.
Those are just like a sponge, just absorbing the water. Yeah.
I have seen so many beautiful decorative things ruined by a corkscrewing 4x4 or landscape timber.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, Alan, I want to shift over to fence design because one thing that, like I said, I've been very pleased that it's not just, you don't just see standard cookie cutter fences anymore.
Right.
However, I have a cautionary tale about that. One thing you might start seeing is you see fence boards mounted horizontally, which is a cool look, man. You see that. However, gravity is not your friend. And those fence boards, I really almost feel like when you're doing that type of a look, you're almost better off going with, because a fence board is a very light wood. It's prone to, go ahead, Max.
I've also seen, to your point about the horizontal ones, I've also seen ones where it almost seems like you're doing a detriment to the wood itself. You like warp the wood to kind of curl, and it makes like a weird curly looking thing around, like a weaving on a wicker basket.
Yeah, they've done
It just
that.
seems like it's detrimental to like the wood, and eventually it's going to wear out.
You can do. I've seen what you're talking. They weave it back and forth like a
wicker basket,
like a wicker basket or something. That some people like that. That's cool. If as long as you support it correctly. But my big thing is that if you have a span and you've got a horizontal board and it looks great, but it's maybe 3 or 4 feet in between each support, it's gonna droop and it's gonna warp and it's good. I mean, the sun and the rain and everything is taking its toll. So just make sure it's well supported and make sure you're using the right material. And I think that's all it is. But by all means, keep this up. I like these looks. I mean, it makes it more interesting.
Well, people are getting a little fancy with it, and I admire that. The one thing I'm going to throw in for the homeowner: do not ever get tempted to not use a pressure treated.
Oh yeah,
I know.
Don't be using the interior wood for that.
I know you only need 4 feet to finish this off, and the board in the 2x4 you have is an interior 2x4, but it's only 4 feet. Well, that's going to be 4 feet you're going to be tearing out in about 2 or 3 years and putting in a pressure treated.
And you know what I'm going to say here, Alan? Don't let the wood breathe. Don't seal it up with a lot of paint. That's going to, it might keep the water off for a while, but eventually water's going to get in and then it has nowhere to go and then it rots and everything. But if you've got an interesting, fence or deck, or if you've done anything out of the box, send it over to us. We'd love to see it. Send it over to our Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and check that out. So, but it's just I'm all for it, but it's got to be done. Got to be done correctly.
Yes.
So, Alan, I'm a little disappointed. Nobody's chimed in on our Star Wars discussion. I might have to.
You had a technical with Robbie, but that was a different show.
Yeah, well, he brought up his geek stuff, so it's like, I can't promise I won't. Maybe what I need to do is just post some examples and get a reaction to that. Maybe it was too, but
it's too abstract.
Too abstract, but
it's again, when you work on these shows, getting the look just right. It's a talent.
It is. So, well, Alan, this show is in the can. It's over. It is what it is. You've been listening to another action-packed episode of Tool Talk Radio, but it's time to go. So on behalf of my buddy Alan Gilbreth, our pal Max over there behind the glass, Jay Hill, who left already, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.